So PMax 2025, how did we get here? Where are we right now? Um, I put this meme before you. This one was really popular with Google employees. Um, and yeah, I mean, I think there there is a lot of work that Google has done to improve PMax. PMax haters are very real, but Google is slowly but surely eliminating some of the bigger complaints. We'll get into that in some more detail. But you know, when PMax was launched 3 years ago now, believe it or not, it feels like yesterday somehow. But a lot of people felt it was kind of a half-baked product. One of my favorite quotes comes from Sam Tomlinson. He said it's like this raw custard with a soggy crust, and yeah, just it was really a half-baked product. But actually, the roots of kind of the complaints about PMax, they go back a lot further than that. I'm going to take us back in time quickly to Google Marketing Live 2019. And this came from in the coverage by Search Engine Land's editor-in-chief at the time. And she wrote, as automation and machine learning infiltrate and power more marketing and campaign functions, there will be necessary questions about transparency and control. So she was talking specifically about smart shopping back then. And the she there, this is very interesting. If some of you remember, that was Ginny Marvin, who is now employed at Google. She's the product liaison for Google Ads. This basically means that she's an interface to the public. She's kind of the public face of Google Ads. And yeah, I mean, I think she never quite forgot this quote. I hope she didn't, but fast forward like 5 years later to Google Marketing Live 2024, this past May. And this was a kind of, to me, a very memorable moment from Google Marketing Live. This popped up on screen. Performance Max, the kind of spiritual successor to smart shopping campaigns, came up, and Tim Frank said that there's going to be more reporting and controls. And there was this unplanned, like, standing ovation. People started cheering, and it was applause that was both excitement, and I think people were happy and appreciative. And it was also, you know, I think there was a touch of criticism implicit in that applause too, because it took a long time for us to get here. But this is what we're going to be talking about today. Some of these new features that have launched last year that are still launching in the first part of this year. We don't know everything that's coming ahead for 2025, but I bet it's a lot. And I just want to plant something, a perspective for me. I don't know. For some reason, I love quoting myself with a dramatic black and white headshot. But in between these 2 points, back in 2019 and 2024, I mentioned that I think more option insights will come to Performance Max, but these will be on Google's terms. And I think that's something, without, you know, tooting my own horn or something, but that's exactly right. And we'll see that in the way that these new insights and these new controls are structured and delivered. There's an airtightness to them. Google doesn't reveal more than they want to reveal. They don't offer more than they want to offer. And I think it's challenging to interpret that, because on the one hand, it's kind of the spirit of compromise that, you know, there's a give and take, and we have to find a middle when we're compromising. I also think that compared to the Google of like 2019, they're way more open and they are way more compromising. So I think that's an improvement. But on the other hand, you know, some people would say that we're being gaslighted, or gaslit. What's the past tense of that? That these things should have been available from the start, and that the progress Google has made is not enough. So I'll leave that a bit open. I'll share my opinions as we go. And if you're the type of person who is on LinkedIn reading every single update and stuff like that, a lot of this stuff won't be new to you, but I'm here to offer my view on it. And I often feel that people they break the news and they say, hey, something's going to happen, but they don't get that much deeper than that. So I hope to go, you know, a touch deeper than the headlines. So running through the agenda, now that we kind of set the scene, I'll just say a few words about us, and then we'll get into the content. And some of these sections are not that long, but we'll go into, basic controls, advanced goals, and everything you see before you. And at the end, as I mentioned, Q&A, I see someone already shared a question there, so keep on sending them through. Another person asked if they're the only one who can't see anything. Unfortunately, I think you are. I'm sorry about that, but hopefully you can try rejoining and it'll work. All right, so about us, first I'll introduce myself. I've been working in Google Ads for like 7 to 8 years now. And before that, I worked in retail operations. And so that's always been kind of my passion, is connecting the dots between retail and e-commerce and advertising. And Google Shopping, Performance Max, this is the perfect place to do that. Let's see. So some social proof for you. Let's throw it out there. You can also find me quoted in all these wonderful publications, or you can, skip the subscription wall, however you need to do. You do what you need to do. Now I'll tell you a bit about SMEC. We are a company that specializes. Hold on, I'm hearing a couple of more people saying they can't see anything. And one attendee is saying that they had to pop the screen out because they couldn't see anything. If you pop out the window, then they can see it. I don't know. I have to tell you, Zoom is not my favorite. We're hosting the webinar via Zoom. I hope not too many of you are having problems here, but there's like 250 people in here and I just see a couple of complaints. So hopefully it is mostly fine. So just a quick word about Smarter e-commerce. Yeah, we specialize in paid acquisition for e-commerce, Google Ads in particular, and PMax, that's the right name for it. PMax really in particular, that's our specialty. I think we're about the best that there is in terms of PMax. And we bring a lot of people and brain power to that. We're also in trustful relationships with a lot of clients. We're very grateful for that. And here you can see some of those, but without saying more, we'll get into the content here. Basic controls is the first section that we're going to cover. So as you remember, Tim Frank, he said that transparency and control are coming, or insights and control. And the first one of these that I want to share with you is about search partner exclusions, because I don't know how much awareness there is of this topic, but PMax is defaulted into the search partner network. There's nothing you can really do about that. You can't opt out of the search partner network, but starting, actually late in 2023, Google started offering the ability to opt out of search partners in a limited capacity. And then early last year, they started offering this more properly. And the way that they approached it is that you can opt out of search partners at the account level. And this will also include PMax and other campaign types, of course. The reason that they offer it at that level, I have a stat here about performance that I see you're probably looking at. I'll talk about that in a second, but for Google, it's never about performance. Google wants to own performance. They want PMax to own performance. So for Google, when they offer transparency and control, they almost always have brand safety in mind, because there are some very large brands spending with them. And this is the most important thing. They can't jeopardize that spend. They know that these brands can be very sensitive about safety, and they want to kind of cover that. But it's not really their sense or their purpose to offer performance control. However, having said that, I looked at, as you can see on the screen, you probably read by now, I looked at 26 billion shopping impressions for last year. And I segmented these were standard shopping impressions. You can't do this analysis for PMax, but I segmented them by the Google Search Network and the Search Partner Network. And I saw that this is the same campaign type, standard shopping. For Search Partner Network, the ROAS is more than a third lower. It's 37% lower. And this is based on data from hundreds of accounts. So the Search Partner Network, as you can see in the description there, it includes things like parked domains and other kinds of websites. I'll show you later on an example of what one of these websites can look like. It's not exactly the cream of the crop for inventory. It doesn't mean that all search partners is bad. These are budget buys and they extend your reach. but certainly some of them you will have brand safety concerns. There was a report, there was coverage about the sanctioned Iranian websites, and all kinds of brands were advertising on these websites via search partner networks. That's how this all came about. But there is also a performance dimension there as well, besides the brand safety. So just to look at these exclusions in a bit more detail. Let's see. Sorry, I'm just looking at these comments. I see there's still, I think hopefully everyone has got it straightened out with the technical difficulties by now. I'm real sorry about that. So if we look at how to exclude these, you can exclude domains or specific URLs. And excluding the domain will include the subdomains and the subsites. It will not exclude different country domains because that'll have that different country code. And so you need to handle that with a separate exclusion. And these are, they're limited in the amount that you can put. 65,000 is a lot in a way, but let me just go back a slide here. Google says that search partners can extend the reach of Google search ads to hundreds of non-Google websites. I think they missed a word there. You can extend it to hundreds of thousands of non-Google websites. And so 65,000, it isn't the world. If you're working with a manager account, you can do 3 lists of 250,000 each, so you can get a significantly higher ceiling on that. Another thing that's slightly concerning about these account level exclusions, I haven't personally verified this, but Nava Hopkins from Optimizer, she says that tool-based account exclusions are failing. And this is concerning because actually this is even 65,000, it's a pretty large number, and having tool assistance would be very helpful in making these kind of exclusions. Another note is that Google domains cannot be excluded. That's because some fun people, creative people, you know how we are in the industry, they realized that you could just like exclude youtube.com and kill YouTube placements entirely that way. And Google doesn't allow you to do that anymore. While we're on that topic of Google domains not being excludable, this is a bit concerning because I won't say a lot. This is rather rare, but there are anonymous advertisers in the search partner network, also in Google Display Network, and you can't block those because that's a Google domain. But the good news is that as of August 24th, as August last year, 2024, Google is removing the ability to be anonymous because they're adopting some new technology from their partner IAB. And I know that works for GDN because it says so in the press release and in the documents, but they don't mention Search Partner Network specifically. The next control that we're going to talk about is negative keywords for PMax campaigns. There's a lot of history and a lot of drama here. One of the key reasons that people wanted negative keywords for PMax was for excluding brand. And at first you could only create negatives for PMax at the account level. And again, that was a brand safety measure, but no one wanted to exclude brand from their entire account. So this was not workable that way. There are also performance reasons why you want to exclude keywords as well, or add negative keywords as well, negative targeting. So there are workarounds. There's like a PMax campaign modification request. So you can see the link down there at the bottom. You can also ask your rep. And this goes back years. This was also possible on smart shopping campaigns. These things have been around for a long time. But now they rolled out a feature. And at first, this was one of the things that I was most excited about in 2024 when it was announced that this would be coming. But when you get in the details, again, Google wants to own performance, and this is intended for brand safety purposes. So there are 2 ways that you can tell that. First off, you're only able to add 100 negative keywords per campaign, which is a token. I mean, it's a tiny amount that's only sufficient to handle brand safety things, if that. And also negative keyword lists are not supported. So it's seemingly kind of purposely a manual, cumbersome process. Um, and the other thing is that, when you think about how you would determine which negative keywords you want to add anyway, historically you would look at things like your search term report. And PMax doesn't have classic search term reporting. They have search term insights. And a big difference there is that there's no cost data. So you can't tell CPC, you can't tell ROAS. It's not possible to calculate or know these things for PMax at the search term level. As a result, it's really hard to use this tool that Google has introduced. And this is definitely one that gets a fail from my side. I also have one further observation about it, which is that, you can also add, normally you can add negative keywords for display as well and video. These negative keywords, Google has specified that they work for search and shopping. If you're using search themes are a form of positive targeting, different from keywords. They act a bit like a keyword, but they also do positive targeting in display and video. So if you use a negative keyword in PMax, I get that it's going to reduce the search and shopping part, but I'm not sure that it will also get rid of the that display and video stuff. So just an interesting mechanic that needs to be thought through. This is quite a new one, which I haven't seen a lot, and it's a change that are made to brand exclusions. So Google shipped brand exclusions already back in 2023 as a way of handling the brand traffic problem, which is namely that PMax likes brand traffic because it performs really well. And yeah, I mean, it ends up cannibalizing your search campaigns a bit. People didn't want that. So Google offered brand exclusions. You can also add other kinds of brand lists. You can exclude competitor brands and stuff like that too, to make sure you don't bid on competitors. But the problem was, it's kind of like a nuclear option or like a scorched earth thing, because it will work across all the inventory in your PMax campaign. And your PMax campaign is actually mostly shopping traffic. In the vast majority of cases, it's probably like 80 to 90% shopping. So you're trying to get rid of that part that's really troublesome, that's bothering your dedicated brand search campaigns, and you end up killing all of your branded shopping traffic as well. People were therefore making fallback standard shopping campaigns. And now Google is offering this little checkbox here, which will continue to advertise brands on shopping ads, so that you don't have to create those fallback campaigns. I think this feature is very interesting. I like that it's kind of a proper solution. It's getting some mixed feedback from people because they'd rather have the control that a standard shopping campaign can offer when it comes to that branded traffic. And on the other hand, we'll get into this a bit later on, but there has been a change in the priority mechanisms between PMax and shopping that makes those branded fallbacks a little bit less reliable. So if you've read that sentence about leakage, I'll explain that later on. I'm going to give you a quick side note here. If you're wondering what I'm talking about with PMax serving on brand traffic, we've developed a script that can help you understand it. This script has been really popular. It's been downloaded about 5,000 times, and it's quite simple. Basically, it will create a time series for you that will show you the branded and non-branded share of your PMax campaigns, because that's really hard to do out of the box. So you can definitely have a look at that script with a QR code there, or search for it, the PMax Brand Traffic Analyzer. So I'm going to move on to advanced goals at this point. First, I want to talk about, this is probably of everything that Google's working on right now, this is maybe my favorite, or I think one of the most interesting things that they're doing, and this is their Profit Optimization Beta. So this is the kind of simple combination of two things which have been permanently in beta for years and had not a lot of use case till now. One of them is that funny acronym CWCD, that's conversions with cart data. also known as basket data. It's not very complicated. It's just a little bit of extra parameters that you add into your Google tag. It also works with Google Analytics, search ads, etc. It goes into your data layer, and it's going to help you basically, or it's going to help Google know the order composition, because normally Google knows which items were clicked and they know, the average order value and stuff like that. But this helps them understand really all of the items that went into that. Then on the other hand, you include your COGS, your cost of goods sold, in your product feed. And when you combine these two things, Google is able to know all of the products that were in the order, as well as the cost of goods sold for all of these. And they're able to perform a very simple calculation, which is the conversion value or the revenue minus the cost of goods sold. And this is the gross profit or the gross margin as a percentage. There are other ways of doing this. There are server-side solutions. Some of these, there are also offline conversion imports. The advantage of some of these things, you might feel uncomfortable sharing your cost of goods sold with Google. You can also add in more detailed calculations to get down to like from your gross margin down to like your contribution margin. For example, your fulfillment costs, transaction fees, etc. Hold on one sec. I have a couple appendix slides here. I'm not going to get into a lot of detail about that right now, but you can view these on your own when you get the deck. We'll send it out via email, but I introduce you a bit more to conversion with cart data because I think it's a really great feature. And I show you just a little bit about how the data is structured, what metrics are available, and then how you can combine those a little bit, just a couple of ideas how to use it. But back to profit optimization to the beta. People are, I think, worried, like, could this somehow become readable to in the URL or anywhere? But this is not exposed in the conversion ping or anywhere else. It is sealed off. And another really interesting thing, Google states that there's not a learning period. You can actually switch kind of seamlessly back and forth between revenue optimization, profit optimization, and that's quite interesting. The kind of drawbacks of this is that right now it's incompatible with omni-channel campaigns. So basically, if you want to drive offline conversions or stuff like that with PMax, and it also, you need to have the COGS data for the vast majority of your catalog. I think there are maybe some options to bring in COGS at like a brand level or product type, but yes, that's something to be aware of. And I think that it does have an interesting future ahead of it because you can take other Google features like automated discounts, for example. This is a feature in the Merchant Center where Google will automatically kind of determine discounts for you on the fly. And when Google knows your profitability, they're able to, let's say, make more profitable discounting, to balance kind of the demand elasticity, the price elasticity with your need to be profitable. So I think that's a really great feature. I also have a chart here which shows the adoption of these two features, conversion with cart data and COGS. I reported this almost exactly a year ago as well, and cart data was at like 40% and COGS was at like 5% adoption. Now, we probably have a higher, like this is a little bit skewed on the conversions with cart data because we do a lot of tracking implementations for our clients, and we put that in by default often. So that might be skewed upward of market. But as far as COGS go, I view this as a reasonably representative sample of the market. And in my opinion, I mean, it's always hard to say with small percentages like 5%. It's not nothing, but it's also not something. But to me, that movement from 5% to 9% within 1 year, where the use case isn't really even fleshed out yet, I think that is something. And I think that more advertisers will start to share COGS over time. I also think I've been saying this one for years, but I think that if enough advertisers do share COGS, then in theory, Google can make some pretty reasonable assumptions about your profitability, whether or not you share that data. Just food for thought. On the topic of reporting, excuse me, of controls here, it's very tricky because I don't want to overshare on Google's behalf, and I also don't want to speak too much about things where there's not a lot to say yet. But I put here some keywords for what's coming more this year, I think, and what reading between the lines, I think Google is very interested. Like right now, they have a bit of a remarketing problem, in my opinion. And I think that they are looking at reframing that a bit around retention and engagement. So I think that's something that they're going to work on. There's also, you've probably heard about some betas like new customer acquisition for high value optimization for new customers, something like this. They are very aware that the incrementality, the kind of causal uplift of PMax gets challenged, and that is more important than ever to advertisers this year. So I think they are very focused on seeking high value customers, and they're very focused on new customer acquisition. They've already shipped features actually for a few years now in this direction, but there's certainly more coming. So those are some keywords where I'm not comfortable sharing more than that right now, but I think these are themes that you'll see in the course of the year ahead. We're going to move on to the next section, which is about reporting. So to start off here, Google Ads API supports a new thing called Performance Max Placement View. So PMax placements have been available forever through the report editor in Google Ads user interface. They have not been programmatically available through the API. And that's changed now. They are. And I like to share this API view on the topic because it shows you how I mentioned earlier that Google delivers PMax and things related to PMax in a very airtight way, this very kind of hermetically sealed, airtight way. So when you look at PMax placements, there is exactly one segment that's available, it's date, and there is exactly one metric available, it is impressions. Now let's compare that. I don't want to put too fine a point on it, but this is the standard detail placement view. And you can see that there's probably about a dozen segments available, and I don't know, 2 or 3 dozen metrics available. And that is the difference between how PMax placements are shared and how every other kind of placement is shared. So it's something that I'm not enthusiastic about, and I think Google deserves a little bit of challenging on that. But they are making improvements. So let's look at a couple of those. Search partner placements. I told you earlier I'd show you what a search partner looks like in case you've never seen one. But this one, like right now, you can see there are these shopping ads, these product listing ads served by Google. There's also a text ad served by Google. And there are many, many more text ads below that as you scroll down the page. But there are also product listing ads by Amazon, product listing ads by eBay, and off screen below that, this is a German website, and there are product ads served by a German marketplace. And so these search partners where their website is basically what we call MFA, made for advertising. And it's the type of thing that you really have to wonder about the quality and if you want to serve there. That's a little bit of a tangent, but I just want to make it that you can touch it, that you feel what these placements are all about. So search partner placements go back to March 2024. The data is available. I did not put a slide in for that, but I've shared that graph before. You can see when this stuff became available. And they typically total about 5 to 6% of impressions in PMax. And in case you think that Search Partner Network is like a PMax problem and you think, oh, I'll just go to Standard Shopping or something, these percentages are almost identical to what you see in Standard Shopping. There's not a difference there. Search Partner Network is, it's just, it's part of the Google advertising picture right now. My problem about the search partner placements, they are showing up in the PMax placement report, and I'll show you in a minute a bit about how that report looks like, but they're not labeled. You can't tell that they're search partners. So it's super frustrating because in a feed-only campaign, it's pretty easy to infer which ones are search partners, but in a full PMax campaign with assets, it's not so simple. It's not so simple. So, you know, that's something that's just not cool, is that there's no label on this. And I don't know, I'm looking at some solutions for that. Maybe I'll be able to help you out in a couple of months, but right now it's too early to talk about. So that's my big beef right there, is that the placements, yes, they're there, the data's there, but it is only impressions and it's not labeled. So it's better than nothing. And a reminder, you can then exclude them at the account level, as I showed you earlier. Here's something where Google has done a bit better. They have also added YouTube placements for PMax, and they did this really important thing, which is that they labeled them so that you can actually properly report them. So in step one, you just go into report editor, or there is even a pre-built report for PMax placements, but I just want to show you how it's built. So you go into report editor and you want to create a row for your PMax placement type and then the PMax placement itself. I've then applied a filter on the placement type. You'll see that there's a couple of options like app, web, etc. And I just filtered for YouTube. And then I've added the only metric that you can, which is impressions. You see that if you could look at the performance rows, they're all grayed out. You can't select any of this. And then it's pretty simple. The table will report PMax placements where the placement type is YouTube video. And actually in this example here, it's a beauty brand. I actually think that these placements are totally satisfactory. I was looking at data from December, and you see that there was a lot of, or not a lot, there were impressions on these advent calendar reveals that are, I guess, really popular in the beauty space on YouTube. And I think it's totally appropriate and good that they had ads served against these advent calendar videos. I think that's good targeting. But there's other kinds of crap in there too. The volume is not large typically, but there's just other crap in there. There's political stuff. There's super baity culture war things that I'm not going to get into, but like getting into gender wars and all these themes that are very debatable right now. Also children's content. So just be aware of that stuff. That is what you're looking for. I would also mention that you'll often see videos, especially here in Europe. It might be a little different in the US, I'm not sure, but or in other regions, but here in Europe, you'll see plenty of videos where you can't read it because it's in some language that you don't know. So a little tip is that if you export this stuff to Google Sheets, it's really simple. Google Translate is built into Google Sheets. There's a formula to detect the language, and then there's another formula to translate from a source language to a destination language. And so you can build a formula that will very simply or quickly translate all of this stuff for you. You don't need AI or anything. It's just right there built in Sheets. So that's something I feel better about, is YouTube reporting. I'm also happy to see PMax Search Impression Share available. I was actually building a tool for this when it came out, so I'm a little hurt that that they shipped a proper feature before I finished my tool. But on the other hand, I'm glad way more people will be reached by a proper tool. So I've included the formula here so you understand what we are talking about with Search Impression Share for PMax. This is just, if you sum up all of your impressions from search and shopping inventory on PMax and you divide it by the ones you're eligible for, that is a search impression share for PMax. Display impression share is not included in there. Other kind of stuff not included in there. So it isn't a complete picture of your PMax campaign, but it is a picture of those two inventory types, which in most cases are driving a large majority of the campaign anyway. And you can go back and view this data through September 11th or 12th of last year. It's also available in the tooling, which is great. And they also include like the search lost these calculated metrics. Like, for example, you lost impression share due to budget, or you lost impression share due to ad rank. You can find out about that. And then one last note, if you don't want to look at this campaign level impression share, this has always been the case, but the search impression share and the shopping impression share separately, those are both available in the Auction Insights report. And there you can also compare against your competitors, of course, since it's the auction report. So that's another good place to look. I'm just going to share with you quickly a couple of resources. And I mean, we could have a whole session about impression share for PMax, but we see that it does behave differently than standard shopping in a couple of ways. Like if we look at the left-hand chart here, we can see that PMax tends to have lower impression share, or more campaigns are in these lower buckets than shopping. Shopping seems, it's a question of whether or not this effect is kind of real or it's a side effect of reporting, but evidently, apparently, shopping has higher impression share rates. And then also the reasons for lost impression share are very different for the two. So for PMax, it's very driven by ad rank. And my hypothesis for that is because PMax is competing against basically every other campaign type in your account. And these interactions are always determined by ad rank. So I think that could be a reason why. I've written an article about this, which you can read at the first link. Adalicis just published an article last week, super detailed about this topic as well. So check out those links. On the topic of reporting, there is more too than what we've looked at a little bit deeper here. Demographics, I haven't checked this out, but according to roadmaps I've seen, it's already launched. I mentioned conversions with cart data earlier. That's available by API now. That's launched. That's super cool because for years and years it was just locked in these tables, but now it's available for scripting, for tooling. It's really properly available now. Price benchmarks, from what I know, that was expected to be shipped in Q4. Maybe it's slowly rolling out. Maybe it's behind schedule. I don't know. But I'll just mention that price benchmarks were available in the past. For a couple of years, they were available. The data is the same data that you'll see in the Merchant Center. And then Google took it away for some reason. I'm not sure. I know a concern on Google's side is about aggregating price benchmark data. That's against the rules. And maybe they're releasing it in a new way that's harder to aggregate. I don't know. And the last thing that I'll mention, this is starting to pop up in accounts now. It is Google is working to include search themes within the search term insights. So they've added a new column called source, and you can see that either these search categories were driven by search themes or by URLs and your other PMax stuff. So the idea here to me is that you would be able to total all of the conversions or conversion value or clicks, impressions, whatever, driven by search themes. And then you can see the effect of search themes on your account. Now I'm going to quickly get into some unofficial products. So Google has this incredible Google Marketing Solutions GitHub repository, all kinds of tools built in Python. If you are technical, or if people in your team are technical, this is a slide from exactly a year ago, and there's so many more things they built last year that's crazy. I think that some of the coolest things that Google does are right here in GitHub. I'm not going to update the whole repository for the past year because there's way too much stuff, but I will share with you 3 things pertaining to Performance Max. And this is a ranked list. It goes from my favorite to my least favorite. So I think the coolest one that they have right now, it's called Mad PMax. My only complaint is that this isn't built into the product officially because I think it's important. This helps you manage your assets at scale. We hear all the time that from advertisers that asset management is a pain, it's not scalable, there's so much manual work, it's tedious, it's error prone, etc. And something that has really agitated me is that Google is working on asset management heavily, but they're working on the AI stuff. They're working on generative, like on Product Studio and having Product Studio available in Google Ads and stuff like that. Like that's really neat. But for me, they need to first build a scalable, usable product. And I think they're getting distracted by the shiny AI stuff when they should be working on these fundamentals. So Mad PMax is a tool that can help you with that. Max Magic, I'll mention next. This is a keyword expansion tool or a keyword discovery tool. It takes top performing queries from your search term insights and I think makes broad match out of them. This is not available in GitHub. I think it's only available through reps. And my theory why that is, I told you earlier that the search term insights report doesn't have cost data, so you can't know CPC or ROAS. And this actually uses ROAS. So it shows you that in the back end, they do have the cost data available. They are able to calculate the ROAS. They just don't want to do it. But Max Magic is a tool that works with that. And then there's also another one called PMaximizer, which I don't have a lot to say about it. I think it's a little boring. It's like it's a best practice dashboard. And I put best practice in quotes here because it's not that dissimilar from like OptiScore or something like that. It's the best practices according to Google. And respectfully, I don't think that that's the gospel truth when it comes to the best practices about PMax. But those are some unofficial products you might not have heard of before. And I hope we'll see more of those this year. Last, before we get to Q&A, I want to talk about an important priority change that happened in October, I think, for PMax and shopping. So in the past, well, if you look at the way that PMax interacts with other campaigns, it's almost always determined by ad rank. There is an exception with search with this exact match topic. And then the other exception has been that PMax just squashes shopping. And this was a big difference from smart shopping and standard shopping back in the days when smart shopping migrated to PMax. It just started crushing any standard shopping that was in the account. For the most part, you can game that a little bit. But what they've done now is they've taken away that hierarchy, and now the relationship is solved by ad rank, just like everyone else. And the way this is supposed to work is in this quoted text here, that campaigns are not supposed to compete with each other. They won't drive bids higher. And that, because it should be designed this way. However, the thing about ad rank for shopping in PMax is that I think it's less clear how ad rank works for shopping. We know from text ads that it's based on like your landing page experience, the relevance, the predicted click-through rate, etc. When it comes to PMax and shopping, these shopping units, these PLAs, are so similar to each other. They're built from the same feed. They have an identical landing page. On what basis are they really differentiated? How could the relevance be improved? That's not clear. And so Google has actually confirmed that ad rank is determined by the bid in this interaction. So this means that these campaigns, if they're advertising the same products within the same account, they can fight each other. It also means that, like, if you're using shopping as a fallback for brand funneling, as we mentioned earlier on, the reason that worked was because of the priority of PMax. That effect is weakened now. So it's really important, if you have shopping and PMax living next to each other in an account, I think it's important to choose, and to put a foot forward. Choose which foot you're putting forward. You need to have meaningfully differentiated bids, budgets, that they're not going to just be competing with each other. So I think Google's goal with the priority in the past was to force an either or decision. In my opinion, the either or decision still remains. I do think that this is waking up some additional shopping costs and is probably like revenue positive for Google. But this is just, it's something, if you have shopping campaigns in your account parallel to PMax and you haven't heard about this change, it's an important one that could be changing the way your account performs. So, all right, we clocked in at like 45 minutes, a little longer, but that opens us up to the Q&A, which is cool because there's an awful lot of questions out there. Well, I'm going to dismiss my screen. And you can scan the QR code in the meanwhile if you want. You can find me on LinkedIn. I'm very happy to connect with you. There we go. So you should just see me now, I hope. And let's go into some questions. Again, I've got like 10 to 15 minutes left. Let's cover as many as we can. All right, there's a question starting off that it's from someone who's a freelancer. They don't work in e-com much, and they don't know if what they're doing is considered best practice when it comes to PMax and shopping. Can I recommend any go-to resources? I would say go to ppcsurvey.com and you'll see like the top 50 and top 100 most influential experts on there. And these are people who are contributing on LinkedIn, Twitter, YouTube, podcasts, all the way up to books they've written. That's a great place to start. A lot of those people are in e-commerce and it's a great place to start. They also asked what I think about running PMax and standard shopping in parallel. I think I just answered that question. I think you need to be careful doing that, very careful. Someone's asking about where the option is to exclude search partners at the account level. I think it's called like the content tab. I recommend Googling it and checking out the Google support page. I think it's called the content tab, and you'll see the option within there. Someone has asked my opinion about segmenting products based on Google Ads performance compared to Google's own algorithm. Like, shouldn't Google's algorithm automatically adjust CPCs based on the performance? It's a general question, but I'm happy to answer it. Also, I'm always happy to discuss product segmentation, by the way. Well, you're right. This is a form of double optimization, in my opinion, because Google already knows the historical and to a certain extent, the predicted performance of given products. So I think where you can help Google more is by bringing in data from off the channel that Google doesn't know about, things that matter to your business. And I also think that you should, I don't really accept these very simplistic frameworks for segmenting, like based on volume and efficiency or something like that. The problem is that so many products have very little historical data, and that's hard to solve for. But you can reach out to me afterwards and we can talk more about that. Someone asked what blank means in the PMax brand script. This is an interesting question. It's basically some data is uncategorized. And generally, I think that is due to privacy reasons. In fact, I believe it has been relabeled now as due to privacy. Like it's been relabeled as private search terms instead of uncategorized. But if you look at this blank data and you look at the performance of that, because in the script you can see the volume, like the conversion volume, the conversion value volume of branded, non-branded, and blank. You can also see like the conversion rate. And I can pretty much promise you that the conversion rate of the blank data will be very similar to your non-branded data. So I don't think that brand traffic is hiding in there. I think it's generic non-branded traffic that is simply uncategorized. I hope that makes sense. Someone has asked if profit optimization will let Google optimize for margin rather than simply spend. In other words, will it let them take more of the advertiser's margin than they do today? In principle, it should. So by default, the bidding strategy in Google Ads or in PMax is going to be max conversion value. And when your conversion value has been switched from revenue to profit, it should be maxing your profit, your in absolute terms, dollars, euros, pound. The other question to your point is about maybe the percentage margin, because your absolute profit should grow according to this approach. But the profitability, could it simultaneously shrink? This is a pretty complicated question, I would say, for a short answer. But let me just say, I understand there's a threat that Google, by knowing everyone's profit margins, they could get closer to what I think Colin Slattery has called the minimum acceptable return. They can squash that difference. They can find out exactly how much they can take. However, I think this is a little conspiratorial for me. I think this technology looks promising, and it should do as it promises to maximize profit. I would check that in the UI, and I would verify it on the back end in your books if you use this technology. But to me, it's worth testing. Someone asks or says Google says you need to spend $7,000 a week for the profit optimization beta. That's right. I've heard that as well. Have you tried this beta for smaller budgets? That was a precondition for participation. I think no one has tried this on smaller budgets yet. Maybe Google is doing that in the pilot, but my interpretation of this threshold is that Google is just looking in the first place to test on accounts where they know there's enough volume and it's going to be easy for their algorithm. It's just this kind of nutrient-rich learning environment for them. And in time, I would expect the exact same thing to happen for small budgets on profit as you would expect for on revenue, because ultimately the conversion volume, forgetting about the conversion value, the number of conversions that you get per month is key to how well PMax's algorithm or smart bidding in general is going to perform. So I think for smart bidding, you really need like at least 30 monthly conversions. 60 or more is best. This is actually, I don't think this, I know this based on data. And it just, the volatility increases at that point. So I hope that answers your question. No, I haven't tried it for smaller budgets, and I don't even think Google has. What do you think about the strategy of having two PMax campaigns based on our experience? PMax drives a lot of branded traffic. Hold on, sorry, I'm just going to read this question through. Okay, so like they're thinking of they don't want to disrupt the account structure. They have a healthy, well-performing campaign that excludes brand, and they don't want to disrupt that. I think that there are interesting new logics that open up in terms of brand exclusion or inclusion. And you can think about this combined with other features like new customer acquisition. Like maybe it's fine for you to pursue branded traffic when it's pursuing new customers, for example. And then when you're pursuing everyone, you want to exclude the brand. But yeah, I think if you have a campaign that's running well, of course you want to be careful not to disturb it. I would also think, you can also use our script to help determine how many of your conversions per month are branded. And if I was just mentioning having a monthly minimum of conversions. And for example, let's imagine that you have 50 monthly conversions, and our script shows you that 30 of them are branded, and you exclude those. Now you're going to be down to 20 branded exclusions. Excuse me, 20 conversions per month. I think that tool could help you understand if you're going to go in the fear factor or not. So I hope that helps you. Any tip how to get started with reporting through the API using Google Ads when you have no coding experience? I think in some regards, this is easier than ever because of like ChatGPT and these coding tools. But I would recommend that you just, I would recommend reading through the documentation and just understanding um, the logic of how the API is structured, just in terms of the fields. Like there's really, the documentation is vast, it's rich. I don't code, by the way. I read the API all the time, and it still will stimulate your thoughts and trigger them. Um, and whether or not you can code, I think it will help. It'll change the way you think about Google Ads. And AI is here to help on the coding part. Um, Someone mentioned that price benchmark is still around in the Merchant Center. That's correct. It was also in the Google Ads UI, and it's not anymore. Um, do you trust Google with cost of goods sold data? Isn't there a risk that they use this to charge more per click if they think you can afford it? That's the same as someone else asked. Yes, this risk absolutely exists. I can't say that it doesn't, but um, they don't know the significance of they don't know what is your break even as a business. I think it's too risky for them to mess around with that. Um, who are they to say, oh, they have a 50% margin? That's really high. We can take more. For your business, maybe 50% margin is not high, because that's your gross margin. We're not talking about contribution margin. We're not talking about net profit. I don't buy it. I trust Google kind of on this for once. What am I personally most excited for regarding PMax and most afraid of? I'm most afraid of that they're going to start sending classic standard search campaigns further and further to PMax. We saw that they were focus grouping this last year or almost 2 years ago. They were asking advertisers how they would feel about migrating search campaigns to PMax. And now we see this strange new thing called Search Max. That's something that gives me a stomach ache. And what I'm most excited for, sorry, I'm losing my voice, most excited for regarding PMax. Yeah, I think that Google understands that they need the campaign to work harder. I think that they're working harder on the customer side and on the profit side, and that's something I feel really positive about. Is feed gen available in all European languages, and have you tested it? Is it a better solution than using OpenAI? Feed gen, in case you're not aware, is one of these GitHub solutions that helps use generative AI to optimize your feed, I think specifically your titles. I don't know exactly which languages it's available in, but I do know they released a new batch of languages. I have not personally tested it, but our solutions team tested it. And we were not that impressed with it because the content needed heavy human review. It was usable, it was not usable, and we were just not so convinced of the value add personally. If you were starting right now for e-com retail with a huge shopping feed with 90,000 SKUs, would you do PMax or standard shopping or hybrid? I'm a man of the future, and I would say PMax. For all of its frustrating things about it, um, I I I question on a big feed with 90,000 SKUs where you can expect good conversion volume. I would say go for PMax. And in terms of like hybrid or not, um, there can be a place for shopping as a catch-all to get some kind of incremental conversions. But I don't see a hybrid. Maybe you want to use, if there's some part of your assortment that you feels really sensitive, or I don't know what that PMax is not suitable for, you could explore a hybrid, but to me, I wouldn't overcomplicate it in that regard. All right, we're at the hour. There's still a lot of questions left, so I have to stop. But thank you all so much for joining. I really appreciate your time, and I'm wishing you an awesome 2025. And feel free to write me in. I usually try to do a blog post to answer as many of these as I can. I'll do that again this time. I forgot to put it in my calendar, but we'll find a way. All right, thanks again.